The video begins by debunking the common myth that poverty is merely the result of poor personal choices or a lack of discipline. Instead, it introduces a brutal mathematical reality through the Vimes-Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. Imagine two individuals, one wealthy and one struggling. The wealthy person can afford to spend $50 on a pair of high-quality, durable leather boots that will last for a decade. The person living paycheck to paycheck, however, only has $10 to spare. They're forced to buy cheap, poorly made boots that fall apart after a single season. Consequently, they must buy a new $10 pair every year. Fast forward 10 years, the wealthy person has spent only $50 and still has dry, comfortable feet. Meanwhile, the person in poverty has spent $100, double the amount, yet they have spent the entire decade with wet feet and worn-out soles. This illustrates the fundamental trap. Poverty is expensive. When you lack the upfront capital to invest in quality, you're taxed by your own inability to save, forcing you to pay a poverty premium just to maintain a baseline existence. The video dives deeper into the invisible mechanisms of the modern economy that seem designed to punish those with low balances. This section highlights how the financial system often extracts the most value from those who have the least. First, the inefficiency of small-scale purchasing. Bulk buying is a luxury. A person with financial breathing room can spend $50 at a wholesaler like Costco to get a low unit price on essentials like toilet paper or diapers. A person in poverty, lacking that liquid capital, is forced to buy cheap, poorly made boots that fall apart after a single season. Consequently, they must buy a new $10 pair every year. Next, the irony of banking. In a cruel twist of logic, banks reward the wealthy and penalize the poor. If you maintain a high balance, the bank waives all fees and provides perks. However, if your balance drops below a certain threshold, you are hit with maintenance fees. Even worse are overdraft fees. If you accidentally spend $1 more than you have, the bank may charge you $35. It is a predatory cycle where you are literally fined for not having enough money. And lastly, the cost of inaccessibility. People in poverty often live in food deserts or lack reliable transportation, which forces them to spend more on bus fares, delivery fees, or premium prices at corner stores with limited, low-quality options. Every dollar they earn has less purchasing power because of the environment their poverty forces them into. In short, the financial system operates on a pay-to-play model, where the entry fee for efficiency is simply out of reach for many. This section shifts from external mathematics to internal biology of the brain. It argues that being broke isn't just a financial state, it is a cognitive burden that physically alters how you think. The IQ tax. Scientific studies mentioned in the video suggest that the constant stress of juggling bills and fearing eviction can drop a person's functional IQ by about 13 points. This is equivalent to losing a full night's sleep every single day. When your brain is hyper-focused on survival, how to pay for lunch today, it lacks the bandwidth to plan for the future, how to invest for next year. This survival loop explains why people in poverty sometimes make decisions that appear irrational to outsiders, such as playing the lottery or taking out a payday loan. These aren't necessarily signs of low intelligence, they're desperate attempts to solve an immediate, crushing problem. The brain is stuck in survival mode, prioritizing the now because the later is not guaranteed. And lastly, the depletion of willpower. Managing a tight budget requires constant, grueling mental effort. Every single purchase, no matter how small, becomes a stressful decision. By the end of the day, this decision fatigue leaves the individual with no mental energy left to pursue education, side hustles, or long-term health goals. Essentially, the wealthy don't just save money, they save mental energy, which they can then use to make even better financial decisions, widening the gap further. This section analyzes how poverty forces individuals into a cycle of renting their lives rather than owning them, leading to a massive drain on long-term wealth. First, the high cost of low credit. Credit scores act as a gatekeeper to the middle class. If you have a low score due to past financial struggles, you are forced into subprime territory. The video points out that while a wealthy person might get a car loan at 3% or 4% interest, someone with poor credit might be stuck with 24% interest. Over the life of a 5-year loan, the lower income person ends up paying for the car twice, once for the vehicle itself and once for the bank. Next, the rent-to-own trap. For those who cannot afford a few $100s for a new appliance, services like rent-to-own seem like a lifesaver. However, the math is devastating. Paying $20 a week for a TV may feel manageable, but by the time the contract ends, the customer has often paid 3 to 4 times the retail price of the item. And lastly, housing and equity. The most significant divide is in housing. Renting is essentially an interest rate of 100%. You pay every month and build zero equity. A person who can afford a down payment builds wealth as their property appreciates. A person who cannot afford the down payment spends decades buying a house for their landlord.